It is not just the Superferry 14. It is a question that has never been answered. How could a 10,000-ton steel fortress advertised as the unsinkable pride of the archipelago collapse into a burning tomb just 90 minutes from the safety of the port?
Secure that rope quickly now.
Why did a system designed to defy typhoons and the crushing weight of the Pacific surrender to 4 kilograms of powder hidden inside a hollowed-out television set? And more importantly, why did 899 passengers become the unwitting gamblers in a game they did not know they were playing? But that is only the surface. Behind the moment the night sky turned orange over Manila Bay lies another story, less told, but equally dangerous, about political denial, cold-blooded calculation, and a chain of small errors merging into history. Why did it all happen on a calm February night? And what actually killed the Superferry 14, the fire, the water, or the human element? Stay tuned, because the truth about the deadliest maritime terror attack in modern history is unlike any story you know. Manila North Harbor, February 26, 2004. The air was heavy, a thick soup of diesel fumes, salt spray, and the humidity that clings to your skin like a second layer of clothing. It was nearly midnight, but the port was alive, a chaotic symphony of shouting porters, revving jeepneys, and the rhythmic clanking of chains. Rising above this frantic human ant farm was the Superferry 14. She was a behemoth. At over 10,000 gross tons, she wasn't just a vessel. She was a floating piece of sovereign territory, a steel island promising to bridge the gap between the bustle of Manila and the southern shores of Bacolod and Cagayan de Oro. To the 899 passengers boarding her, she didn't look like a machine. She looked like a promise. She looked like home. Inside, the world changed. The moment you stepped across the gangplank, the sticky heat of the docks vanished, replaced by the crisp, artificial winter of industrial air conditioning. The ship was bright smelling of floor wax, instant coffee, and fresh linen. In the economy class, the bunks were arranged in endless, orderly rows, a dormitory of dreams where students, returning workers, and families staked out their small territories with pillows and bags of pasalubong. In the tourist class, the air was quieter, the lighting softer. It was a scene of aggressive normalcy. Children chased each other through the corridors, their laughter bouncing off the steel bulkheads. In the cafeteria, the clatter of silverware against ceramic plates created a comforting din. A group of friends huddled around a table, arguing playfully over a game of cards while the smell of frying garlic and adobo drifted from the galley. Everything felt solid. Everything felt permanent. The thick steel hull painted a pristine, white felt impenetrable, masking the fact that the difference between a luxury cruise and a maritime disaster is often just a few millimeters of plating and a single moment of bad luck. Amidst this sea of faces, one man moved with a quiet purpose. He was listed on the manifest as Arnulfo Laderas, but his true name was Redendo Cain de Losa. He did not look like an agent of chaos. He looked like everyone else, weary, unassuming, blending into the tapestry of travelers. He carried a cardboard box. It was a standard package, the kind you see thousands of in the Philippines, a gift for a relative perhaps, or a second-hand appliance bought in the city. It contained a 14-inch color television set. To the crew who glanced at him, it was just luggage. To the physics of the ship, it was negligible weight. De Losa walked to the economy section on the lower deck, bunk 51. He placed the box carefully. He didn't hide it. He didn't bury it. He simply set it down among the other bags, the sacks of rice and the plastic crates. Inside the hollow shell of that television, there was no cathode ray tube. There was only 4 kilograms of TNT wired to a timing device. The box sat there, an innocent object of wood and plastic, vibrating slightly in time with the ship's idle engines, a mechanical cancer waiting to metastasize in the heart of the vessel. De Losa did not stay to enjoy the voyage. Before the final whistle blew, he slipped away. He disembarked, blending back into the crowd on the pier, leaving his gift behind. At 11:00 p.m., the Superferry 14 cast off her lines. The massive propellers churned the black water into white foam, pushing the city away. As the ship moved into the deeper waters of Manila Bay, the mood on board settled into a gentle rhythm. The lights of the city skyline sparkled in the distance, a beautiful retreating galaxy. Passengers settled into their bunks. The video K machine in the lounge played a ballad. The captain confident in his course, and his vessel navigated the calm waters. The sea was flat, a mirror reflecting the stars. It was the perfect night for a voyage. There was no wind to rock the hull, no storm clouds to threaten the radar. The ship was a self-contained universe of light and warmth cutting through the void. It was invincible. It was a golden dream of engineering carrying nearly 900 souls toward a tomorrow that felt guaranteed. As the passengers closed their eyes, lulled by the hypnotic thrum of the diesel engines, they could not feel the silent countdown ticking inside the cardboard box, on the lower deck, syncing its rhythm with the beating hearts of the sleeping children. 12:50 a.m. The timeline of the Superferry 14 snaps. Off the coast of Corregidor Island, the world is silent. The only sound is the water slapping against the hull. On the bridge, the radar sweeps in a lazy green circle. In the economy section, the breathing of hundreds of passengers creates a soft, collective rhythm. As a young mother on the lower deck reaches down to pull a blanket over her sleeping daughter, the timer inside the television set hits 0. There is no warning, no cinematic beep, just the sudden violent erasure of peace. The explosion is not a noise, it is a physical blow. 4 kilograms of TNT expand at 7,000 meters per second. The television set disintegrates instantly, turning into a cloud of supersonic plastic and wire. The blast wave does not care about the passengers. It treats the steel bunks like paper, twisting the frames into jagged sculptures. It punches through the ceiling, ripping open the deck above like a tin can. For a split second, the air inside the compartment is hotter than the surface of the sun. The ship shudders. A massive metallic groan vibrates through the entire vessel, loud enough to wake the dead. In the tourist class, drinks slide off tables. In the cabins, sleepers are thrown from their beds. Then the silence returns. A heavy, ringing silence. For 10 seconds, nobody screams. The brain cannot process the shift from sleeping to war zone. The lights flicker, die, and then buzz back to life, dim yellow and struggling. This is the moment of false hope. Passengers stand up dazed. They look at each other. There is no water rushing in. The ship is not tilting violently. It's the engine, someone says. Just a boiler. Stay calm. The belief spreads faster than the shockwave. They are on a massive ship. Surely they are safe. The captain is in control. The steel is thick. But the physics of the explosion has already ignited a new enemy, one far crueler than the blast itself. The TNT has scattered burning debris across the lower deck. The mattresses, the pillows, the bags of clothes, the cheap plywood partitions, they all catch fire. The lower deck transforms into a blast furnace. the smoke begins to rise. It is not the white, puffy smoke of a campfire. It is black, oily, and toxic, the smell of melting synthetic leather and burning paint. It curls up the stairwells, a silent, choking snake hunting for oxygen. The alarm finally screams, but it is too late to be orderly. The fire consumes the oxygen on the lower levels, pushing a wall of heat upwards. The floor of the upper deck becomes too hot to stand on. Shoes begin to melt. The panic arrives. It is a contagion. The stay calm mantra dissolves into a stampede. People rush the exits, but the smoke is faster. It blinds them. It fills their lungs with cyanide and carbon monoxide. In the corridors, the darkness is absolute, broken only by the orange glow of the inferno beneath their feet. The sound is terrifying. The roar of the fire is like a jet engine drowning out the cries of the children. They are trapped. Behind them, the heat is blistering, peeling the skin from their arms. Ahead of them, the railings of the ship. They reach the open deck. The night air is cool, but the relief is short-lived. The fire is pushing them to the edge. There is nowhere left to go. The choice is impossible: burn to death in the floating cage or jump into the black void of Manila Bay. As the first passenger climbs the railing, looking down at the ink-black water 70 feet below the ocean waits. It does not offer salvation. It simply offers a different way to die. Bodies begin to fall. They hit the water with sickening slaps. The screams from the water mix with the roar of the fire from the ship. The Superferry 14 is no longer a vessel. It is a torch burning bright and terrible against the night sky, while the radar on the bridge continues to sweep indifferent to the hell unfolding beneath it. When the sun rose over Manila Bay on February 28th, it did not illuminate a ship. It illuminated a carcass. The Superferry 14 had not sunk completely. She had rolled over half submerged in the shallow waters near the island, listing heavily like a wounded animal refusing to die. The white paint was gone, replaced by the matte black scars of a fire that had burned hot enough to warp structural steel. The majesty of the previous night was replaced by a wet, hollow silence. The rescue boats had done their work. The bodies were counted, at least the ones that could be found. But as the smoke cleared, a second fog rolled in the fog of denial. In the hours following the disaster, the official narrative began to construct a shield. It was an engine failure. It was a gas leak. It was an accident. To admit that a floating fortress had been breached by terrorists was to admit a failure of national security so profound it could topple a government. The authorities wanted the world to believe that the machine had simply failed, that physics, not malice, was the culprit. But Steele remembers. The investigation that followed was a feat of forensic engineering that rivaled the construction of the ship itself. It was a resurrection of the event played in reverse. A team of elite investigators, bomb data experts, and marine chemists descended upon the wreck. They were not there to mourn. They were there to listen to what the metal was screaming. Entering the burnt-out hull was a descent into a mechanical underworld. The investigators moved through corridors that were no longer corridors, but tunnels of fused plastic and twisted iron. The heat had been so intense that the aluminum fixtures had melted and dripped like wax, pooling on the floor in silver puddles that had frozen in time. The air inside was cold, now smelling of brine wet ash and the copper tang of oxidized blood. In the corner of what used to be the economy section, a child's plastic sandal was fused into the steel deck plate, pointing towards an exit it never reached. The team wasn't looking for general damage. They were hunting for the epicenter. In a fire caused by an engine failure, the damage is diffuse. In a bombing, the geometry is precise. They found it on the lower deck bunk 51. It was a void. The steel floor plating had been punched downward, petaled outward like a blooming metal flower. The ceiling directly above it had been shredded. This was the signature of high-velocity detonation. Physics does not lie. An engine fire pushes. A high explosive shatters. The forensic resurrection went microscopic. They scraped the blackened walls, collecting samples of soot that looked identical to the untrained eye. But under the chromatograph, the chemical ghost emerged. It wasn't diesel residue. It wasn't cooking gas. It was trinitrotoluene, TNT. The accident theory collapsed instantly. The investigation shifted from a salvage operation to a manhunt. The scale of the inquiry expanded from the twisted metal of the ship to the sprawling chaos of the city. Intelligence agencies began to trace the ghost passenger. They didn't just find a name, they found a receipt. They reconstructed the timeline of Redendo Cane de Losa with terrifying precision. They found the ticket purchase. They found the shop where the television was bought. They traced the origin of the TNT to stolen military stockpiles. The investigators pieced together the fragments of the television set found in the blast zone. Shards of plastic, a twisted coil of copper wire, a piece of a circuit board. Like paleontologists reconstructing a dinosaur from a single bone, they built a model of the weapon. It was crude, cheap, and horrifyingly effective. The contrast was sickening. The Superferry 14 was a marvel of modern naval architecture, equipped with radar GPS and fire suppression systems worth millions of dollars. It was brought down by a device that cost less than $50 to assemble. The charred skeleton of the ship remained in the bay for weeks, a black monument visible from the shore, while the divers continued to pull pieces of the truth from the silt, ignoring the schools of fish that had begun to feed on the shadows inside the hull. The resurrection of the truth was complete. The ship had died, but the story was dragged kicking and screaming to the surface. It was not a tragedy of error. It was a calculated slaughter executed with the cold indifference of a butcher. The engineering of the bomb had defeated the engineering of the ship, proving once again that it is far easier to destroy a system than to build one. Today, the water of Manila Bay is calm. The scar on the horizon is gone. The steel of the Superferry 14 was eventually salvaged, cut into pieces, and melted down to become something else. Perhaps a bridge, perhaps a skyscraper, or perhaps another ship. The ocean has washed away the ash, and the currents have dispersed the fuel. Nature has reset the stage indifferent, as always. But the echo of that night refuses to fade. The bombing of the Superferry 14 remains a terrifying case study in the fragility of our modern world. We build larger ships, stronger engines, and smarter radars. We construct fortresses of technology designed to withstand the wrath of God. Yet we remain defenseless against the wrath of a single man with a cardboard box. The 116 lives lost were not claimed by a storm they could see coming. They were claimed by a betrayal they could not imagine. They trusted the system. They believed that the ticket they held was a guarantee of safety. But in the predatory ocean of terrorism, there are no guarantees. There is only the lucky and the unlucky. Redendo Cane de Losa proved that you do not need an army to sink a Titan. You only need patience, 4 kilograms of powder, and the arrogance of a system that believes it is untouchable. As you sit here safe in your room, remember the Superferry 14. Remember that the line between a golden dream and a burning nightmare is often nothing more than a few millimeters of steel. And the person sitting next to you on the bench holding a package that looks just like a gift. History is not just dates and numbers. It is the collective memory of our species. Thank you for taking the time to remember these events with us. If you have a story, or an event you believe deserves to be told, leave it in the comments. We are listening.